Hello and welcome to the Cosmic Vortex and the very first upload on this brand new channel, all about news for Marvel, Doctor Who, Star Wars and everything in between. I'm your host Troy, and in today's video we're breaking down the very first 2 episodes of the new MCU television program WandaVision, the first limited series to be released on Disney+. I'll be giving my full thoughts on everything in the episode with full spoilers. I need to warn everyone for that from the very beginning, so if you haven't watched the show, go watch that first. But I'll break down the episodes, what I liked about them, what I didn't like, although there's not much in that field, and then I'll also discuss a few theories I have for the future of the show. So without any further ado, let's get into it and let's talk WandaVision. Both of these episodes open with Marvel's Phase 3 intro, with the very dramatic piece of music written by Michael Giacchino, and with all the characters appearing throughout it. However, all of them fade to black and white as the episodes open up because we are within a black and white TV show, and as the Marvel Studios logo begins to show, we go from 16:9 widescreen into an old-fashioned 50s TV square screen. Now, both of these episodes of WandaVision are framed as a 50s style comedy with a laugh track, square picture frame, as well as all the typical features you'd expect if you've ever seen a 50s comedy in the past. There's a live action intro of Wanda and Vision first off driving into the neighborhood, moving into the house and trying to blend in. It's even got some special 50s stylized name credits for both Wanda and Vision, who are credited as themselves rather than the actors, to try and get the whole thing to look more like a show within the world, which is quite interesting. Quite likes that touch. But then we move into the beginning of the episode. We find Wanda cleaning up in the kitchen and Vision walking in, and the two of them right from the very beginning have got such fantastic chemistry. It's something we already saw in Infinity War and Endgame, but they get on so well. They've got great chemistry between both the actors, Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, and their characters. They get on brilliantly, and right off the bat they're starting off with this humor. Marvel films have always been known for their humor. They're always known for having that little comedic edge to them, and they've dialed up more in this because it is done like a sitcom, and I've got to say it's done flawlessly. There are no jokes that don't land, even though some are ones you just kind of smile at rather than laugh at. There aren't any jokes that fall flat or don't work in the show, and I really like that. Right off the bat, it's giving you an impression of what this show is going to be like. Immediately after that though, I noticed Vision's behavior and his body language seeming far more human than it has in the past. He doesn't seem quite as rigid and quite as robotic as he has in his film appearances. He seems more laid back, more human-like, just with the Vision face makeup on. But the couple both then look at the calendar in the kitchen and debate over the significance of the heart on today's date and what it meant. Neither of them could recall what it was about. It was kind of giving the impression it might have been their anniversary, but it wasn't actually hinted at, and after that Vision sets off to go to work, and then leaves us with the introduction of the next character in the series and my personal favourite of the whole show, beyond Wanda and Vision, the nosy neighbour, Agnes, played by Kathryn Hahn. She is absolutely fantastic. As soon as the door opens and she walks into the house, she's bursting with energy. She is such a captivating character and is genuinely funny, and her and Wanda hit it off immediately. There are gags about how they've moved in so quickly and that the boxes don't magically move themselves, hint hint, wink wink, and there's also a little bit of sexual humour too, but nothing like overt or kind of in your face. It's quite well done, and I kind of like the double entendre thing they were going for in the conversation. Moving to the next scene, we see Vision at work in his job. What is his job, you ask? Well, it seems even Vision doesn't know. Despite being excellent at whatever it is he's doing, he then questions what the purpose of his job is, not really knowing why he's there or what his purpose actually is. We then find out that the heart on the calendar signified that their boss, Mr. Hart, and his wife would be coming over to Wanda and Vision's house later that night for an employee dinner. Immediately, Mr. Hart is given away as this very brash, very critical character. He's quite stern, quite tough, and he quotes himself that is a very keen judge of character. Proved even further by the fact that he actually fired someone at the company for hosting what he thought was a very bad employee dinner. Vision then rings up Wanda, who's still having a conversation with Agnes, and they have a little exchange about the purpose of tonight. Wanda acts like she knows what's going on, but doesn't actually realise that it's a company dinner, and so after a bit of a conversation and them clearly not knowing what each other are talking about, they hang up, and Wanda returns to a conversation with Agnes. And as this conversation proceeds, we begin to get some serious hints that things are not as they seem. Vision has already said that he does not know what his job is, but then we also find out that Wanda doesn't actually know how long they've been married, they're not wearing any rings, they don't have a wedding song. Wanda, of course, manages to play this off to Agnes, and she doesn't think anything of it, but that's all to think about after the ad break, because yes, WandaVision has ad breaks in the middle of the episodes. Obviously here I don't mean about accidents that weren't your fault or about sofa sales. I mean actual in-universe adverts, both of which across these episodes are brilliant. The advert in this episode is for the Toastmate 2000, which was once again a very 50s style commercial and is a product from Stark Industries, showing you the best way to do your toast. If you pay close attention during this advert though, you'll pick up on 2 things. First off, the activation noise in the toaster is actually an Iron Man repulsor sound. And also, you see the first hint of colour on the screen as the flashing lights on the Toastmate goes from black and white to red, which of course for a 50s program when colour television was not a thing is something very out of place. I also quite like the nod at the end to say forget the past, this is your future. There are several things in the MCU we could link that with, but with it being a Stark Industries product, I think there's a certain goatee wearing man that we all don't want to forget, but I think Marvel are saying maybe you should. But considering how Chris Evans is supposedly coming back to Marvel at some point soon, who knows whether Robert Downey Jr. will follow suit, but hey, that's for another day. Going back to the main show though, we find Mr. and Mrs. Hart arriving at Wanda and Vision's house, and with Wanda still not knowing what's going on, she tries to seduce Vision wearing a pretty suggestive outfit, and suddenly realizes that that isn't Vision, and they've got this couple over for dinner. Some chaos then ensues in the kitchen, and Wanda then enlists the help of Agnes to bring some food over before ushering her out so she can quickly rush through the meal. I did quite like Vision's attempts to stop the couple from realizing that Wanda was using her powers to cook the food as quickly as possible, although as we find out, Wanda's powers only cause her more problems, and we end up with her preparing breakfast for dinner. Once they sit down to eat, we then see that the same questions Agnes was asking Wanda are being brought up again from Mr. and Mrs. Hart. When did they move here? What is their history? When did they get married? All these same questions begin to pop up, and you can see from Wanda and Vision that neither of them know how to answer these questions. A problem began to develop, but that was quickly halted by the fact that Mr. Hart began choking on a strawberry. His wife tries to encourage him to stop it as if it's some kind of prank, but then he falls on the floor and continues to choke, and the wife continues to just say stop it over and over and over again, showing no concern that her husband is actually dying on the floor. Wanda and Vision clearly notice that something's wrong, and Wanda asks Vision to use his powers to rescue Mr. Hart, and so he shoves his hand into his throat and pulls out the strawberry, saving his life. And we see something be resolved here, as before the meal was served, Mr. Hart made very clear to Vision that he was not impressed by the service so far from the couple, and then after he saves his life, he says, we'll have a meeting on Monday, I'll talk about that promotion with you. Mr. and Mrs. Hart then leave the house, and Wanda and Vision sit down to close off the episode, and as they have their final conversation, they decide that the day that this episode is taking place will be their anniversary. Wanda produces some rings for them, and they even decide on a wedding song, and they all lived happily ever after, or so you think, because as the credits roll, we then see the camera pan out to see we're watching everything from somebody else's perspective. Somebody is watching it on a television and taking notes in a book with a very notable logo you can also see on a TV screen next to the WandaVision screen. For any keen-eyed Marvel fans, you'll know that's the logo of SWORD. It's kind of like this space version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's a very general term for it, but it's the best way to explain it. Abbreviated from the Sentient World Observation and Response Department, SWORD is the group that many people think we saw at the ending of Spider-Man Far From Home, who owned the ship that Nick Fury was residing on. But the identity of the person watching is unknown. However, I have my own theory that it is actually Darcy Lewis, the character that last appeared in Thor: The Dark World. We already know from casting and from general announcements that both Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp and Darcy Lewis from the Thor films will be reprising their roles in this show, and because of that I believe it's probably Darcy's hands that are taking notes here, and she's got some kind of job for SWORD, but I guess time will tell. Episode 2 opens from the household bedroom, where there is a weird noise outside that Vision and Wanda are trying to get to the bottom of. After a few series of gags, we find it's just a tree bashing on the window, and the pair's beds are brought together and made into a double bed as a small, cold open gag before we see this week's intro. As the title sequence is different this time, it is now an animation style with a new theme, and good grief, is it catchy. Once the intro ends, we see Vision practicing some magic in the hall as Wanda brings through a cabinet to do a disappearing act with him for the upcoming town show fundraiser. Wanda is very keen for her and Vision to appear normal, and she feels that appearing at this talent show and doing some magic is the best way for them to do so. Vision heads out of the house to head towards the neighborhood watch meeting, whilst Wanda heads off to the planning committee for the show. But before Wanda can set off, she hears a helicopter crash outside of the house and goes out to investigate. She then sees something lodged in the front hedge of the property. Pulling it out of the hedge, we see it is a full-colour helicopter toy, and when she tips it over, she sees on the front that there is a SWORD logo on either side of the helicopter's nose. Before she has any more time to investigate, Agnes appears yet again, and once again, honestly, steals the scene, because I just love her personality. I still think she's just as brilliant in this episode. Wanda shares some of her concerns with fitting in with the planning committee, in particular getting along with the committee's head, Dottie, to which Agnes states quite clearly that, quote, Dottie is the key to everything in this town. Impressing her is the most important thing Wanda should be doing. And so Wanda and Agnes meet up with Dottie and a group of other women, and they all head over to the planning committee to discuss the details of the talent show. Right from the beginning of this scene, we get the immediate impression that Dottie is a nasty piece of work and doesn't really care about anybody else around her but herself. But it's in this meeting we are then introduced to Tiona Paris' character, Monica Rambo, who those of you who've seen Captain Marvel will know that the character appeared once before in that film as the daughter of Carol Danvers' best friend, Maria Rambo. This time she's aged up and she is a fully grown woman, but she doesn't introduce herself to Wanda as Monica Rambo, instead opting for the name Geraldine. Wanda and Geraldine hit it off immediately, much to Dottie's distaste, to which Agnes responds under her breath with one of my favourite quotes of the episode:
"How is anybody doing this sober?"
Seriously, I love that character and I hope she is a main character for the other 7 episodes because I cannot get enough of her. Moving over now to Vision, who turns up at the library for the neighbourhood watch meeting. He feels very out of place at the beginning, and these guys at the table seem to kind of be a bit abrasive towards him and think he's a bit too uptight and a bit too square for this meeting, because once Vision sits down and tries to blend in with them, he realises that the neighbourhood watch are not taking things as seriously as he may have expected, opting more towards gossip rather than actual proper concerns. He's then offered a stick of gum, which whilst chewing on, he is slapped on the back and ends up swallowing it by accident. And through a nifty little animation, quite like the intro to this episode, we see that the gum gets lodged within his inner workings and starts to cause him problems later in the episode. Moving back to Wanda now, we see that her and Dottie are the only people left in this scene as Wanda begins to clear up all the plates and glasses from the meeting. This gives Dottie a chance to say to Wanda one-on-one that she doesn't trust her and actually thinks there's something wrong with her and that she doesn't fit in with everyone else in the neighbourhood. Wanda does try to persuade her against this, but Dottie seems quite stern in her ways that she isn't going to like Wanda anytime soon. However, the pair are then interrupted by the radio next to them, which starts playing some very loud music but is then overridden by someone speaking, trying to talk to Wanda. It's a bit difficult to hear what's being said at the end, but it gets quite clear as they ask specifically, "Who is doing this to you, Wanda?" The transmission then cuts off suddenly and Dottie breaks the glass she's holding in her hand, causing her hand to bleed once again in full colour. Wanda tries to help her with her injury, and then Dottie makes a joke about cleaning up the mess, smiles, and walks away as though she's forgotten everything she said about not trusting Wanda and Vision. Another scene trying to make clear that things are not as they seem, but once again, we are not given any chance to dwell on this as we're taken to this episode's mid-episode commercial, this time going for a watch advert, and the company is just as on the nose as the last one, as it is a Strucker watch. Quoting that he'll make time for you, it's a watch with the Hydra logo embedded in it, and there's a nice little gag for those of us who remember who was responsible for Wanda getting her powers in the first place in Avengers Age of Ultron. Returning to the episode, we are then brought up to the talent show, where when Wanda is panicking trying to figure out where Vision has got to, he turns up late and visibly inebriated. He may have only swallowed a piece of gum, but Vision behaves as though he is completely blind drunk right before they're about to go on stage and conduct this magic show that they've been planning since the start of the episode. And as you'd expect, things do not go to plan, as Vision comes out and first off insults everybody for being stupid humans that will never understand the meaning of true magic, and then begins to float. And what follows is a really hilarious set of gags in which Vision tries to do impressive things using his actual superhero powers, and Wanda tries to make reality by adding bits such as ropes or flattening pianos to make them look like cardboard props, just so the audience don't get too suspicious of Vision's abilities. Eventually, we come up to the cabinet of mysteries that was teased at the beginning of the episode. However, Vision closes the cabinet without Wanda getting in there because obviously he's got no clear perceptions of what's going on, and my favourite line of the 2 episodes is then played.
"Are you sure you don't want an audience volunteer named my husband Ralph?" Oh.
No.
Seriously, I love Vision and I love Paul Bettany. I've loved him all the way through, but they've genuinely made him funny in this show, and I cannot thank them enough for it because I need funny Vision right the way through this series. The gag finishes, and instead of Wanda being the one to be hidden in the cupboard, they instead make Monica appear out of nowhere from inside the cupboard. The audience and Dottie are so impressed in particular that they give them the Comedy Performance of the Year award for their magic show. Just after Wanda has a look inside of Vision's mechanics and finds the piece of gum lodged in there and removes it from his body. And all's well that ends well. The couple head home and discuss the talent show quite briefly until they realise that out of seemingly nowhere, Wanda has fallen pregnant. They spend a moment discussing if this is really happening before a noise outside distracts them and causes them to go outside to investigate. What they find is a man emerging from a manhole in the middle of the street who is bearing the sword logo on the back of what appears to be a beekeeper's outfit. Wanda notices the logo and sees the man staring at him and simply utters the word no before all of the events are rewound to before they heard the noise, except this time we don't hear the noise. Wanda once again asks, is this really happening? And by this point, we're beginning to question the same thing as well. However, Vision reassures her that everything that's happening is real, but after that, Vision's head then turns to colour, swiftly followed by the rest of the house, as it seems the black and white era is gone, and WandaVision is now going into full Technicolor, and the two embrace as the episode closes, but in the background, we hear the quote again. Who is doing this to you, Wanda? The main credits of the show once again roll, and I quite like the way these credits are done, because they're done in the style of an RGB television with the red, green, and blue flying all around the place, constructing all the different elements of their world, Vision's glasses, their house, everything in between, and then all it takes is one little piece halfway through the credits to break the illusion, and everything starts to come apart, which I'm guessing is a very clear metaphor for how this series is going to go, going into the future. And that is episodes 1 and 2 of WandaVision. So, let's talk a bit more overall about the episodes, and also what I'm looking forward to going forward with a couple of theories. So, generally the setting is absolutely fantastic. I really was not sure going into these episodes about how the 50s style sitcom would work. I worried the humor might be a bit too much, but they pulled it off fantastically. The humor is brilliant, even though it's been dialed up massively. Vision is the highlight of the show to me. While I love Agnes, and I think that Monica Rambeau's character is also going to be quite interesting, I think Vision is definitely the highlight, because he's a character that, while has been in a few films in the MCU, has always kind of been sidelined. Even in Infinity War, when he was the center of one of the stones, it didn't really seem like we had too much time to spend with him, so I'm really glad that now in this show we get that rectified. The show's music was very good as well, composed by Christoph Beck, who's known for the music of the Ant-Man films in the MCU in particular. There's some really good 50s style stuff here, and the themes in both episodes at the start are also pretty cool. My only slight issue with the episodes is that they're just a bit too short, because if you look at Disney Plus, it says the episodes are a certain length, but actually the credits themselves are about 6 minutes long. So whatever you see on Disney Plus as the length of the episode, you need to take about 6-ish minutes off anyway. But the advantage with these, and it's something that The Mandalorian shares as well, is that the episode lengths, while they might vary, never tends to contain any filler. There's no scenes in WandaVision, just like in The Mandalorian, where things are unnecessary. The show moves at a great pace, the pacing is really, really strong, they get to the point in every single scene, and they move on, because they're not trying to fill a particular 30-minute or hour slot on a TV show schedule, they're just going for however long episodes they want or need for each piece of the story. I'm also a very big fan of the good, strong hints of the future of S.W.O.R.D. in this show, and how their implications within this show will probably extend to the rest of Phase 4 and beyond. So let's talk a little bit about my predictions. So as I said earlier, Jimmy Woo and Darcy Lewis are both confirmed to be coming back in this show. I do think Darcy Lewis is the one watching them. That is my prediction right now. That seemed like her hands watching. We'll have to just see whether it is her or not. I'm sure will be revealed in due time. Now that we've seen the show go from black and white to colour, I would say the black and white episodes are behind us and everything will be full colour going forward. Whether we'll go to a 70s style sitcom next and then move on from there, I don't know. I kind of like the sitcom element to it, and since there are 9 episodes overall, I'd kind of like to see 1 or 2 more episodes in this 70s comic style. Keep letting us live in this world for a little bit longer, and eventually lead us to some big mid-season-ish event that decides the future of the WandaVision show. And my main theory that I plan to break down in a future video is that this is all, as I believe before the show started, in Wanda's head. I don't believe this is a real reality. It's been made into a TV show that S.W.O.R.D. is able to watch, and there are clear pieces of evidence throughout this reality that things are not real. When Wanda sees that man in the outfit, she says herself no before everything rewinds, which makes me think that she's gotten the first hint that the world she's living in, where Vision's still alive, is not real, and she doesn't want to acknowledge it. She doesn't want to believe that everything around her is fake and wants to keep living in this illusion. So she's rewound time, forgot about it, and continued as normal. So I think by the end of this show, Vision will still be dead, and it will be revealed that Wanda is undergoing some very deep trauma that will no doubt be explored in greater detail in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, if not at the end of this show. But I'm completely on board. I'm super excited to see where this show goes, and honestly, I just really want to know what's going to happen next in WandaVision. This is an absolutely fantastic show. I give episodes 1 and 2 an overall 9 out of 10. I think they're absolutely fantastic. I think they really, really are good. I think that we need to see now where the sitcom element continues and how they then begin to wean off it when things get darker, and I'll be able to judge the show better from there. But I am hooked immediately. I love the cast. I love the setting. I love the whole theme of it, and I really cannot wait for episode 3 next Friday. But that brings an end to this video and the very first video of the Cosmic Vortex. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. It'd be greatly appreciated, and make sure that if you want to stick around for more news on WandaVision, Marvel stuff in general, as well as some more Doctor Who and Star Wars content further down the line, then make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep in touch with everything that I do on this channel. But until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all soon with another video.